Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, Mysterious Voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I found in my travels. It is Poetry Thursday, so I wanted to talk about some intriguing poetry as we near the end of Black History Month. I am focusing on Black poets during this time, and today's poem is all about wanting some respite from the oppression you face in the world. I am referring to Black Weariness by Frank Marshall Davis. For those who don't know, Frank Marshall Davis was a Black writer as well as a union organizer and an activist. He wrote a number of books of poetry, but mostly his work was teaching and organizing union workers and fighting white supremacy. He worked with communists, socialists, and various other people to just address that major problem. It should also be noted that he got a lot of work under the Works Progress administration under Franklin Roosevelt, which is pretty cool. Imagine the concept of the government funding the arts. Unheard of in this day and age, but the New Deal was a fascinating program for its time. And I hope that someone eventually brings those kinds of ideas back. And I think Obama had a close relationship either with Frank's family or Frank himself. It's a bit unclear. But pretty fascinating writer overall. He did get investigated by the FBI because of his ties to communism, which is to be expected from a fascist organization like that. But without further ado, let's talk about Black Weariness. I will read it, do a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. Black Weariness. I am tired this night. I shall go alone to Mojo Mike's cafe and bathe my body in high breakers of hot jazz flung tableward, molten notes falling in a crimson spray. I shall sink my soul in warm whiskey while the light-scarred night roosts nervously on the quivering limb of 47th Street in Chicago's Congo. For these hours I can forget that I am black. At school I honed my mind against sleek sides of white ideas. Mine was a leather-covered silence in a room of chintz in red plush sound as I packed my bag with silver bits of knowledge. Later I learned these sparkling morsels gave little strength as I fought across burning sands of a Nordic land. Some I have thrown away. Others I shall guard as priceless treasure until the rattlesnake bite of death, for some day yet I may have need of them. Although I move as one disgraced, outlawed by this my land for being black, I shall lift proud feet and walk by day past sneering townspeople, returning blow for blow until my strength flees and I collapse in utter exhaustion. I would joyously use these silver bits of knowledge helping my white brothers build into America, but when gifts are flung back hard into the face of the giver and the hand extended is seized and crushed between mailed fists, what is there left but fighting? I am tired this night. My arms hang weary from battle. For these few hours at Mojo Mike's cafe, I shall forget civilization. I shall forget color, caste. I shall move in a fantastic world of raceless men and women, so that tomorrow, refreshed by this wild dream, goaded by this vision of America as America, I may go forth again fighting, ever fighting, until I am no longer one apart, until they call to me as I tread our streets, "Hello, brother. Hello, American." So that was Black Weariness. In terms of analysis, there's quite a bit worth talking about in this poem. The narrative is the narrator goes to Mojo Mike's cafe to get away from the oppression that they're facing, to just get a break from reality for the time being. Once they leave, they hope that one day there won't be any caste or racial systems for oppression, and it'll just be greeting each other as brothers or greeting each other as American. Very noble, very beautiful vision of America that we haven't quite reached yet, long after Frank Davis has died. But his vision is a vision that many have shared before. I do think this this poem is interesting because it talks a lot about gifts and knowledge. Especially early in the poem, he says, "At school I honed my mind against sleek slides of white ideas. Mine was a leather-covered silence in a room of chintz, and red plush sound as I packed my bag with silver bits of knowledge. Later I learned these sparkling morsels gave little strength as I fought across burning sands of a Nordic land." Now, what exactly that means, I think it means that, the ideas are useful. The knowledge is useful, but when you try to apply it, it's maybe not as helpful. It says the burning sands of a Nordic land. Does he mean Europe in that regard, where maybe this narrator fought in World War I? Frank Davis didn't fight in either of the wars, at least according to his biography. But does he mean Europe, and how these ideas were great promise, but when you fought the war and came back, you weren't given any of what was promised? Or does it simply mean that America is a Nordic land and you fought across the land, but you only found oppression? I think that might be kind of what Frank Davis is kind of leaning towards there. The idea of gifts and knowledge is brought up later in the poem as well, where he says, "I would joyously use these silver bits of knowledge, helping my white brothers build into America. But when gifts are flung back hard into the face of the giver and the hand extended is seized and crushed between mailed fists, what is there left but fighting?" So, trying to use the silver bits of knowledge, trying to pass it on to others as well. But he's only getting beaten up. He's trying to talk about oppression, inequality in America, fighting the system of white supremacy, but he's only getting beat up as a result. He's only facing even greater oppression. And so when that's all you have to face, when you don't have a pat on the back or anything like that, the only thing left is fighting, which would certainly make you weary, as the title suggests. I know a lot of Black individuals who spend their lives fighting and often die at a relatively young age. I mean, that happens to many activists in this world, where they have to continue fighting, but how do you continue fighting on a constant basis? It's not easy. That's kind of how I feel about the fascism that's growing in America. But, at least we'll always have Mojo Mike's Cafe, where we can find a brief respite, briefly ignore the problems that are going on outside, but then come back the next day and be, we go forth again, fighting, ever fighting, until I am no longer one apart, until they call to me as I tread our streets, "Hello, brother. Hello, American," which I absolutely love the ending to this poem. It fills me with a sense of even greater patriotism, that we can turn to each other and be like, "Hello, brother. Hello, American." That is what being an American truly is. It's about respecting one another, seeking to build each other up, and not creating these invisible divisions, or creating a fictional culture war, or engaging in the class war. Although the class war is important because the wealthy will try to oppress you. What being American truly is helping one another and seeking justice in society. And I think Frank Marshall Davis understands that pretty well. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Black Weariness. It was a pretty solid poem. I do like a lot of what Frank Marshall Davis has written, and I strongly recommend that you seek it out. I'll put a link to the poem in the description. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poet or this poem, or even Poetry Thursday if they want to talk about some similar poetry out there. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and weary travels. Farewell.